The place where the Russians set up a base for the offensive is now ruins and smoke. In occupied Selidovo, Ukrainian aviation struck a high-precision bomb at a multi-story building where Russian soldiers were hiding. The occupiers got what they feared, a precise strike from the sky. Ukrainian MiG-29 uses French bomb. The Ukrainian Air Force carried out an airstrike on an apartment building in occupied Selidovo, where, according to intelligence, Russian troops were located. A video of the precise hit was published by the Telegram channel Sunyashnik, which is associated with the Ukrainian Air Force. A military analyst at Dead District reported that the strike used a French-made AASM Hammer precision-guided bomb. These munitions were successfully adapted by Ukrainian engineers for use on the MiG-29, Su-27, and Su-25. AASM or Armament Air Sol Modulaire is a conventional bomb upgrade kit similar to the American JDAM. It turns conventional free-falling munitions into precision-guided bombs with a range of up to 70 kilometers. France produces two main versions, Hammer 250 for Mk-82 bombs, 227 kilograms, Hammer 1000 for the more powerful Mk-84, 908 kilograms. It is these ammunition that are actively used by the Ukrainian armed forces to destroy fortified positions of the occupiers, including buildings in which personnel and equipment are located. Selidovo is a key base for attacks on Pokrovsk. According to Deep State, Selidovo is currently being used by the Russians as a logistical and tactical base for an offensive in the Pokrovsky direction. It is from here that constant assault attacks are taking place, the intensity of which has grown to its maximum in recent months. The entire front is burning. The Pokrovsk direction is now one of the hottest. The attacks there are almost non-stop, noted a representative of the operational strategic group, Kortitsia. Airstrikes on enemy rear areas are becoming more frequent, and every precise strike by the Ukrainian Air Force is not just a tactical success, but a direct signal to the Kremlin: no occupier will hide behind concrete walls.
The Russian occupation authorities in Mariupol are massively taking away housing from the local population. Apartments and houses are declared ownerless, after which they are sold to the Russians who have arrived. A native of Mariupol complained that she, her daughter and grandson were not allowed into the apartment where they had lived for decades. The Russians declared her property ownerless and changed the locks. I lived here for 30 years. My husband lived here for 60 years. But in 2022, my husband died. The documents that we had for the apartment burned down. The housing office said that your house burned down. There are no documents. I have been running around for a year trying to find at least something. My daughter and grandson are registered here. The grandson is 5 years old. Now the apartment is ownerless. There are 3 of us registered here. They won't give us the keys, the woman said. Now she is forced to turn to Russian courts to try to get her property back. It should be noted that the Russian Federation resorts to numerous manipulations to take away housing from Mariupol residents. For example, they restore damaged houses, change their address, after which the apartments are not given to local residents but sold to visiting Russians. Media also wrote that in Mariupol, ownerless apartments are being seized from the population. In the captured Mariupol of Donetsk Oblast, Russian occupation administrations are committing outright meanness, taking away housing from the local population. Video materials with testimonies of victims were posted on his Telegram channel by a Ukrainian blogger, a displaced person from Donbass, Denis Kazansky. It is reported that the Russian regime is declaring apartments in Mariupol ownerless, not only for those who left the city and cannot return, but also for those who currently live there. Mariupol residents tell how representatives of the Russian administration go from house to house and hang notices on apartment doors stating that the housing has been declared ownerless. At the same time, the victims claim that they have prepared all the necessary documents and presented them to the relevant authorities. What can we say then about those refugees who went abroad or moved to territory controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces? They simply cannot get home now and defend their rights. This means that the legal owners will soon be thrown out onto the street, and new residents from Buryatia and Perm will move in instead. Such a liberation. Putin helped, comments the author of the TG channel on the situation. At least 51 Chinese citizens passed through the Russian Armed Forces selection point in Moscow in a year. The Russian investigative project, Important Stories, identified these people. Journalists found out the names of the Chinese by analyzing the documents that were at the disposal of the project. 31 fighters from China applied to the Moscow selection point in 2023, another 20 in 2024. Most of them arrived in Moscow shortly before applying to the selection center for contract service. At least 4 Chinese volunteers flew back to China after visiting the selection center. According to media reports, the youngest of the Chinese contract soldiers is 20 years old. The oldest is 51. At least 1 Chinese has already died in the war in Ukraine, and several more have been wounded. At the same time, several Chinese citizens could theoretically return to their homeland after completing their 1-year contract with the Russian army. So, Chinese soldiers suffer heavy casualties in Ukraine and are used as cannon fodder by the Russians. Earlier it became known that the Russian Federation is recruiting Chinese for the war with propaganda videos. Such videos emphasize bonuses for signing a contract in the amount of 60,000 to 200,000 yuan, or $8,000 to $27,000, and a monthly salary of about 18,000 yuan, or 2,500. At the same time, The Economist described why Chinese soldiers are fighting in Ukraine. According to journalists, their presence is not surprising because Chinese fighters on both sides of the conflict regularly post videos on social networks about their actions at the front. In particular, those Chinese who are fighting for the Russian Federation say that they are looking for thrills and high earnings by going to the front. Mercenary Zhu Ziqiang said that Russians don't consider them human, while Red Macaroon said that the Russians were using them as cannon fodder for complaining about poor equipment. The latter, for example, was put in a pit with deserters. There are also volunteers fighting on the side of Ukraine. Peng Chenliang from Yunnan province spent 7 months in the Chinese detention center in 2023 for publishing anti-Russian and pro-Ukrainian messages on the internet. In 2024, he joined the Ukrainian Army's Foreign Legion but later died. Before his death, he made a video with the Taiwanese flag, saying that he wanted to be remembered along with Zheng Shengquang, a Taiwanese volunteer who died in 2022 fighting for Ukraine. The article says,